Hello everyone, in this video we are going to discuss a critical opening which is also known as the Ruy Lopez Opening, which is commonly most played opening in the world of chess. Today we are going to look at this particular opening and going to set some serious traps which is going to increase your chances of winning some games by 100%. So this is going to be a very interesting video to watch, so make sure to watch the video till the end. So let's quickly jump right into the video. We are playing with the white pieces and we start the game with 1 e4. Our opponent plays the move e5, we play the move knight f3, knight to c6, and we play the move bishop to b5, which is also known as the Ruy Lopez opening and which is most commonly played opening. And after bishop e5, now we are going to discuss two variations in this position, knight f6 and a6, both the most common move. Knight f6, also known as the Berlin defense, we are going to play the move short castle. And here, knight into pawn, we're going to play rook to e1, which is the most natural move. The most natural move is to play the move d4, which is the best move. But eventually, in the end of the day, it is a drawish line and a very dry end game, which most likely ends in a draw. But we want to win, so we play the move rook to e1. Rook e1 hits the knight and the pawn. So after rook e1, black is having two options to either push the pawn to d5, protecting the knight to on e4, or else to move the knight to f6 simply. First, let's try to discuss what happens after d5. After d5, we are going to play the move d3, hitting the knight goes back, we capture the pawn. And after knight into e5, the position is already completely winning for white because the knight cannot capture the knight because the knight is pinned. And here our rook is already open. So for example, a move like let's take bishop d7, knight into knight, it's a check, you are losing the queen and eventually the game. If bishop e7, I can simply capture the knight, pawn takes, knight takes, queen is attacked, you have to move the queen and eventually I can even capture the bishop and it's completely winning for white. So this is what happens if black goes for playing the move d5. So after rook to e1, the most common move is to play the move knight to d6, which is also the best move in the position. After knight d6, we are going to capture the pawn, and here black is having two options to either capture the bishop or to capture the knight. First, let's try to discuss what happens if knight into b5. We can simply capture the knight on c6, giving a check, and eventually black is losing the queen, and eventually the game. So, not a good idea, so you must capture the knight. And after knight into e5, at the place of capturing the knight, we are going to develop our knight to c3, which is a very interesting move. Here black is having many options to continue the game. First is to simply capture the bishop. Second, to play the move f6 in order to defend the knight on e5. And third, to develop the bishop on e7, ignoring this knight. First, let's try to discuss after what happens if knight into b5. We can simply capture the knight, giving the check. Bishop e7 is the fourth move. And here, at the place of capturing the knight, we are going to play the move knight to d5. The idea is to simply capture the bishop and you can't really defend it. So for example, a move like d6, you can already capture the bishop, breaking the castle and simply come back. Because black's idea is to play the move c6, hitting the knight, simultaneously the rook. So we simply come back and the position is already very much good for white, because white's king is extremely safe compared to the black king, who can never castle in his life now. So g6, a bad move. Let's try to discuss the best move, which is the short castle. But now knight into e7 check, king move, and we can simply capture the bishop. And after queen into c8, rook into b5, white is simply a piece up and going to win the game. But even more interesting thing is, you can capture the bishop, or else you can even go for something more deadly and interesting by playing the move, queen to h5. And after queen h5, the funny part is, if black plays a move like d6, trying to hit the rook, which is a very common move, we can simply sacrifice the queen and deliver a checkmate. The knight covers both the squares and it's a mate. So, d6 does not really work. g6 is the best. We play the move queen to h4 now, threatening mate in 1. So for example, if d6, we can still threaten mate in 1. So here black must play the move f6, which is the only move to continue the game. But here we can simply capture the g6 pawn with the knight. The pawn cannot capture because the pawn is pinned. King move, we capture the rook. You cannot capture the rook because now the queen is hanging. So you must capture the knight, and eventually capturing the knight, we are simply a rook up in the end of the day, and we are going to win the game. So this is the most interesting variation. If white continues by playing queen h5, even knight into c8 wins the game. But queen h5 is very interesting. So yeah, this is what happens if black goes for capturing the knight, if black goes for capturing the bishop. Now let's try to discuss what happens if black goes for playing the move f6, trying to defend the knight. We are going to play the move d4, hitting the knight, knight into b5, d into e5, knight into c3, or else if you try to capture the pawn, I can simply capture the pawn giving a check, followed by if bishop e7, knight d5, and it leads to the same variation as we saw, and white is completely winning. So, knight into knight is the most practical move. Here comes e into f6, check, king move, which is the fourth move. If bishop e7, I'm happy to capture the pawn, and it's a very interesting way to make a queen, and white is win. So, king f6, king f7, which is the best move. We capture the pawn, a very interesting move, because here if black captures the queen, we can capture the rook and make a queen. And if you try to calculate the pieces, even the position, black king is on the verge of getting mated. So, bishop into g7, the best move. We play the move queen h5 check, king move, and now simply developing the bishop even. So here, the queen is kind of trapped. So the best move and the only move for black to keep the queen alive is to play the move bishop to f6. After bishop f6, we are going to play the move bishop to h6 check. Black is having two options, to pull the bishop back or to play the move king g8. If king g8, rook check, and it's mate in two. So, king g8 is not really working, so bishop g7. And now, here's my question. Try to pause the video and can you find the best move for white in the position? Okay, so all of those who found the move, queen e5, which is a brilliant move in the position. You cannot capture the queen because the bishop is pinned. So bishop takes is the fourth move, or else I'm going to checkmate 1. So if bishop into h6, it's game over. So if black plays the move rook g8 trying to defend the bishop, it's still game over after queen f5 check. And black king has no way to run, so queen f6, and after queen into f6, it's game over because the bishop is pinned. So this is what happens if black goes for playing the move f6. So now let's try to discuss what happens if black goes for playing the move bishop to e7. Ignoring this knight, rook into knight, and here black simply shot castles. And if you count the material-wise the position is equal, and after a short castle, we play the move bishop to d3, which is a very interesting move. Bishop f6, hitting the rook, we come back to the rook on e3. And after rook e3, here black plays the move b6, which is a very common move. The idea is to simply develop the bishop to b7, because the bishop would be very strong, because the knight is on d6, so developing the bishop with this diagonal is pretty hard. So playing the move b6 is a very normal move. And after b6, we play the move bishop into h7, check, and boom. King into, queen check, rook h3, and it's a fourth mate, even with the g6, trying to cover the h8 square. Still queen h7 is a game over and winning the game. So after bishop to d3, after bishop f6, rook e3, a very common way at the place of playing the move b6 is to play the move rook to e8. The idea is pretty simple. Black want to trade rooks. Here we are going to simply play the move knight to d5, and here rook trade, c6 trying to remove the knight. We can simply capture the bishop, and now material-wise the position is even. But a good thing here is white is having the bishop pair, so which is a good advantage for white. Just imagine putting the bishop on c3 and how these two bishops would be simply a monster looking at the king side. And practically speaking, positionally speaking, the position is already way too good than you can even imagine from the white side. So this is what happens if black goes for playing the move bishop to e7. So now we have discussed what happens if black plays the move knight to d6. Now let's try to evaluate what happens if at the place of playing the move knight into e4, black goes for playing the move a6 over on the move number 3. So after e6, we play the move bishop a4, knight to f6, and here a very common way to play to even simply short castle, to play the move d3, but we are going to play the move queen to e2, which is a very interesting move, defending the pawn. After queen e2, b5, which is the very natural move because now we are planning to capture the knight followed by capturing the pawn. So b5, bishop to b3, bishop to e7, a4. And after a4, we can already sense because that if black tries to castle, we want to take, black cannot take because black is losing the rook. So after a4, it's a double attack. So black must push the pawn to b4. We play the move d4, which is a very strong move. After d4, black is having mainly two options to continue the game. To either capture the pawn or either protect the pawn by playing the move d6. If black goes for playing the move d6, which is a very common move in the position to play, we can already play the move queen to c4, threatening to capture the knight, as well as threatening queen into f7 and some mating ideas. For example, if bishop to b7, queen into f7 check, king here, and it's mate in 2. So you can already sense how this position is completely winning if black goes for playing the move d6. Now let's try to discuss what happens if black captures the pawn. We are going to push the pawn to e5. Now here, black can't put the rook on d5 or e4. If knight g8, which is an extremely bad move, pulling the knight back, queen c4 is already a very strong move, threatening some mating ideas. A most common move looks like to play the move knight g4 in order to put some pressure on the pawn on e5. If you want to play the move queen e4, hitting this knight and the knight move, we capture the knight, and the positional wise, you can already see how the king side is simply extremely broken. We can even play the move queen f4, threatening mate, and even threatening to capture the pawn, and the position is completely winning. So you can already sense how this position is completely winning, even if white plays a move like a6, which is the most playable move in the top level. But the good thing here is queen e2 is a very new move. You can even try it out in your games and score some heavy good points. So yeah, this was the complete video of how to set some serious traps in Ruy Lopez Opening whenever your opponent plays a move like a6, or even if plays a very solid knight to f6. So we have discussed two main variations, and I hope that this video might have helped you to improve your chess level skills. If it did, then make sure to like the video, share this video with everyone, whoever wants to learn chess and whoever wants to improve their chess level skill. So I'm going to see you soon. I'm going to come up with these interesting videos like this. If you are new to our channel, then make sure to subscribe to our channel. I'm going to come up with these interesting videos like this. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching OneShot Chess.